This is No Nonsense Leadership, where we explore better ways to develop software products and services. Join world-class experts for honest insights and practical advice to help you lead digital teams clearly and confidently. Subscribe now to learn the best ideas in the field.
In this episode, we talk to Nick Consentino about AI-assisted coding. We examine how AI tools such as Co-pilot and ChatGPT enhance developer productivity and enable rapid prototyping. Nick discusses the benefits and pitfalls of using AI, emphasizing the need for strong domain knowledge to avoid generating large amounts of unmanageable code. We discuss why AI tools shouldn't be viewed as replacements for developers, but rather as valuable collaborators that complement human expertise. Nick emphasizes the importance of pragmatic experimentation, continuous learning, and thoughtful oversight to leverage AI in modern software development. Welcome to the No Nonsense Leadership Podcast. I'm Murray Robinson.
And I'm Donna Spencer.
And I'm Nick Consentino.
Hi, Nick. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
So we want to talk to you about AI-assisted coding. But could we start by getting you to introduce yourself?
For sure, yeah. As I said, my name is Nick Consentino. I'm currently an engineering manager at Microsoft. I've been there for just under 5 years now, and I manage engineering teams in the Substrate organization, or the Office 365 side of Microsoft. So these days, I am managing engineering teams. I am not hands-on in the code at work, but outside of work, I still love to program. And prior to Microsoft, I spent about 8 years at a digital forensics company. And while I was a manager there, I was also coding alongside my team. So lots of experience hands-on coding.
Okay, so as a coder, what AI-assisted coding tools do you use and how are you finding it?
Yeah, so I'm a .NET developer. I stick to the classic Visual Studio as a C# developer that's been using it for years and years. And I can remember feeling pretty disappointed with Co-pilot in Visual Studio. It felt like glorified autocomplete. And I remember having it auto-completing things and feeling, this isn't good. I don't know why anyone's using this. This feels terrible. But I stuck with it, and within a month, the autocomplete became very much what I wanted to type. And I just remember getting to this point where it knows what I want to do next. I'm pressing tab and my application just keeps building itself. And I remember feeling the autocomplete was so good that I was hindered when Copilot wasn't available because it always knows what I want to do next. You're going to make me type this out now? And it felt like I was walking through molasses.
Yeah. So what are the other tools you've been trying out?
Sure, yeah. So there's a couple of different use cases that I really like using ChatGPT for. For example, SQL queries. If I have to query databases, I know how to write SQL. I'm not like a master SQL developer or anything like that. I can write queries, I can debug them, I can optimize them. I don't love doing it though. So what I like to do is create my data schema, and then I will give it to ChatGPT and say, hey, here's what I want to do. I want to query from these data sets. I want to have results that look like X, and we'll give it some optimizations that I want it to be thinking about. Regular expressions are another one. We all know about them. No one likes writing them, and no one likes debugging them. I have really good success with ChatGPT being able to give me regular expressions. And I think every single time where I've been frustrated by ChatGPT with a regex, the more that I poke at it, the more I realize I didn't give it enough data, or I misunderstood something. It's humbling because I'll be like, no, like you're not matching the right thing. And then I realize, oh, I had a typo or something, and the AI was definitely smarter than me. Sometimes refactoring code. So in C#, there's something that's called LINQ, LINQ, and it's a functional programming syntax where you can say, given a collection, I would like to select things from the collection. I would like to filter on them. So you can manipulate things with a pipelining syntax. Really popular with C# developers, but in some situations it's not performant. Or in some cases, you build up these really big pipelines and you're like, that's just not even readable anymore. But you can always represent LINQ queries or these pipelines as for loops and collections. So there's some situations where I get to a point where I've written a bunch of LINQ and I'm like, this has grown unwieldy, so I can select it and just say, convert this into for loops and this type of collection and optimize for memory efficiency or something. And it goes ahead and does it. Am I able to do it? Absolutely. I've been programming in C# since 2007, so I know how to do it, but I don't love doing that, and it can do it like that for me. So those are three obvious ones when it comes to code. And the other use case is rubber duck debugging and designing. When I'm doing personal projects, I'm trying to challenge myself. Hey, ChatGPT, I'm planning on building this thing and I'll give it some ideas. And I like asking it, what other things would you consider? What have I missed here? So that it feels like I'm talking to someone else who is a developer that might have some different perspectives to share with me. So that's a new one I'm practicing.
I have been using ChatGPT recently to help design a product, an idea. So I asked it to help me develop a pitch deck and go through all the product stuff. And then I went into the data model and the pages, and it feels like having a conversation with a collaborator with a different point of view. And sometimes that collaborator goes off on the wrong track or misunderstands you, but sometimes it's really good. Sometimes they can do some grunt work for you and they can come up with a different point of view. So I found it quite helpful for product development work. However, I have tried it for coding, and I'm just a novice coder these days, but I found it really difficult. It was telling me to do things that I didn't understand. I would say, I want to do this, and it would say, okay, here's the code to do this. And I'd run the code and it didn't work. And I couldn't read the code and work out what the problem was. So I'd go back to it and say, I'm getting this error. And it kept wanting to make the code more and more elaborate. And the more elaborate it got, the harder it got for me to understand. And I just reached the point where it was very difficult to get it to do what I wanted. So you've got one case where I know what to do. I have a high level of experience and I'm using it as a collaborator to help me, but I'm judging what it's saying. And the other case is where I don't know what I'm doing. It's telling me to do things and I have no ability to judge what it's saying. And that's when it seems to go badly. I'm wondering if that reflects your experience.
Yes, it does. I tried to have some awareness about going too deep into the AI prompting when it's stuff that I don't know at all. There have been situations where I have seen it go down a rabbit hole, and after like an hour of debugging why ChatGPT is not working, I scroll all the way back up in the conversation and I was like, I messed up right at the start. So I would be steering it and I was seeing what it was doing and I'm like, okay, I can rationalize why that would make sense. And then it would start doing things where I'm like, no, that doesn't make sense. Or I've misprompted it or I've given an unclear instruction. But the biggest challenge in this situation was that I didn't realize the missing instruction was so far up in the chat, like an hour earlier. And if I clarified that at the beginning, one of the first answers it gave me was spot on. Just having the domain knowledge to be able to say, I can tell this is on the right direction or not, allows me to steer it. And I think what you were probably experiencing is you don't know how to steer it. And the best that you can do is say, it doesn't work, here's an error. It now needs to go figure that out.
One of the statements about AI assistant coding is that it would allow founders to be able to get their ideas out into the world faster without actually having to hire developers. That still seems like a very large step up. Is it realistic?
So when prototyping, the barrier to entry is dramatically reduced. I think that's amazing. I'm not threatened by that. As someone who writes software, I think that it's so cool that people that may not have a technical background may actually be able to put something together. I think when you want to go past the prototype, if it was vibe coded and no one has any idea what's even put together, I don't know if it's a good idea to go building on top of that versus saying, should we actually go consider building this the right way? Have we thought about how this might scale? Does anyone know how the security part to this works? There's horror stories already of people having like API keys and all this stuff exposed on the internet. They went beyond the prototype stage, and I think that's where it starts to get risky.
Nick, I see on Reddit experienced developers complaining bitterly about junior developers producing huge amounts of garbage code using AI assistants and then submitting them for code reviews with thousands of lines and then not being able to explain it to the reviewer. And not only that, when the team lead says to them, this is not factored properly, or how are you addressing this security issue? They cannot answer the question because they really don't know what the code does. How can we expect to put stuff like this in production if you don't even understand it?
Yeah, as an experienced dev, when I read some of that subreddit, I can absolutely get behind what some of these people are saying. So my take on it is using AI tools to produce something and not understanding it is dangerous. If you're not already familiar with the domain, the subject, and you're asking the AI tools to do it for you, you're probably going to get to this point where you're like, I don't actually know what's happening. If we use the example of a pull request code review goes up and it's thousands of lines long, and then you have the more senior people getting frustrated by it and they're going, you don't even know how this works. What are you doing? I think the same things would happen in smaller steps without the AI tools. Someone would push up code, and then the more senior people would be like, hey, thank you for writing this class, or thanks for fixing this bug, but did you write the test for this? Did you even validate it? And the junior would say, oh no, wrote the code, tried it out. I tried this one scenario. I didn't even know we had unit tests or something. Like the scale at which this happens is much smaller. And I think it's more normalized. So we can tolerate that. And it's a learning curve. I work with engineers that are like, people should just know how to do that, or they should be asking those questions. And I say, no, people all start somewhere. And part of our jobs as more senior developers is to educate and teach people about that. So I think it's just accelerated.
I think yes, I agree that junior developers need to learn a lot of stuff. But if you are pushing up a 50-line class for review, that's a bite-sized chunk that's easy to learn from. You understand what you've done. And the tech lead say, that's good, but where's your unit tests? Or your API seems wrong. But if instead of 50 lines, you've got 1,000 lines, it's really hard for that person to learn. In fact, it's really hard to teach. If somebody gives you something really big that is wrought all the way through in little ways and big ways, it's hard to know where to start. And what I hear the stories in experienced devs is that people are producing large quantities of code quickly, but they are not learning. In fact, they're learning bad practices.
Is this a team process issue where somebody said, go do a thing without actually helping a junior understand the things they need to do? Or is it like a management issue of team produce more, go use that AI stuff?
Yeah, I think your point is very valid. Most of the time, junior developers are given tasks where the complexity is low. The problem is actually already understood, but someone hasn't coded the solution for it. But these should generally be relatively bite-sized. And I think that if people are finding themselves in a position where juniors are blasting up thousands of lines of code, was it the wrong task? Did they not set expectations ahead of time? And going back to what I said earlier, I think a lot of people want to assume, hey, software developer, like you should inherently be asking these types of things. It should be built into you to be curious. But I think that's actually a learned thing too, that people have to be exposed to. You should be asking questions like this. You should be curious.
I've seen this with new designers who want to go and sit in the corner for a week and produce a whole lot of stuff, and they don't want to ask questions. They turn up with a whole design, and then you're like, okay, that's terrible. You should have asked me questions. So it's a process mentoring thing that probably technology is exacerbating.
I think you're spot on, Donna. I remember being a junior developer in my first job, and the seniors did not want to help me at all. They resented me being there. And I would often do stuff for a week without any feedback. And it was super hard. And the thing is, I was afraid to ask questions because I didn't want to look stupid. And also when I did ask questions, they'd have a real go at me. You got to take responsibility for really coaching and mentoring and training your junior developers as an apprenticeship, really.
Yeah, it's a psychological safety thing. So don't get me wrong. I can imagine if I had a junior dev on my team push up 10,000 lines of code and I was just like, oh man, what just happened here? But my first reaction would not be, hey, you must be an idiot. How could you ever do this? It would be like, whoa, okay, we should take a step back and explain to them there's so much here that we can't even give you feedback properly. We have to break this down into something smaller. And so next time, it's not, oh, you can't use AI, shame on you. It's a tool. Use tools if they're going to help. But we need to start by coaching you to be delivering things in smaller steps so that we can give you feedback. And the more comfortable you get, the longer you're on the team understanding how we operate, the complexity and the scope can grow if it needs to.
So are we agreeing then that junior developers using AI are producing garbage code?
I think the answer is probably yes, if they are not asking it questions to understand it.
So McKinsey, Bain and BCG, the big three management consulting companies, are now reporting that 50% of their revenue is coming from advising executives at large corporations on how to use AI tools. One of the things that they are telling people is that you can now lay off a substantial number of your developers if you use LLM, and here's a plan to fire them. Is that true? Can you now fire a large number of your developers and replace them with large language model?
Yeah, my very strong opinion on this is absolutely not. I'm an engineering manager. I have 11 or 13 engineers that report to me. And I just imagine my boss coming up to me and saying, hey, it's time to lay off the staff because AI is here. Co-pilot can do it now. So great. Okay. So I had 13 engineers, and am I now the person sitting here talking to 20 AI agents, hoping that they can get it done, that they're actually reviewing each other's stuff? In practice, I cannot comprehend actually doing something like this where it has replaced whole teams. Now, when people start going, now you don't need the juniors because you've made the intermediate people and senior people more effective. My argument then is there's like an unlimited amount of work to do. Suddenly you don't have juniors, and like what happens? The mid-levels become senior. There's no one to fill the continuity. In my opinion, you could have just said, let's just get the tooling to enhance people's productivity and chase down even more that we can get done. So I see it less of like a elimination game versus an enhancement game.
Is AI code inherently poorer quality, or is it good?
We keep seeing that there's gaps in it, but humans have gaps in their code too. The difference is that we review our code. When there are bugs, we go fix them. The domain knowledge is incredibly valuable. You need to go add that context in.
What do you need to know to use these tools? It sounds like you need quite a lot of domain knowledge. What do you need to know?
You don't need domain knowledge to have code get output. We can pull up ChatGPT right now and we can make it write code in some language we don't know, in some domain that none of us know. Point proven. But the reality is it's not production ready because anything could go wrong. You have no idea how it works. So beyond a prototype, I think you do need the domain knowledge. Domain knowledge as a software engineer. If you're building mobile applications, what are best practices for mobile apps? If you're building web services, how should this look in terms of the front end, the back end? If you're building distributed systems, do you care about eventual consistency? Do you care about ACID transactions or sagas or event sourcing? There's so many things to consider on the software engineering side. And then there's also the domain for whatever type of product or service you're trying to build.
I wanted to ask how you're using modern software engineering practices like test-driven development and design patterns, if you're using AI to help you.
I think this goes back to the domain knowledge. If you're interested in having tests be produced or you're following some development methodologies, you would probably want to prompt it and let it know that ahead of time. I've never tried that though.
I have seen a couple of very experienced software developers say that they have been using test-driven development with large language models and treating it like pair programming. They are stepping into the navigator role and saying, okay, here's the requirements. Here's how I think it should be tested. Help me write the test case first. And then write code which is going to pass these test cases. And those people have said they've got really good results. Have you seen that?
I actually did a live stream on this the other day. I was getting it to create an algorithm for resizing pictures. At the end of it, I said, I would like you to create some test cases in this language using this testing framework. And it wrote one test case for each functional requirement. But what was interesting was one of the first tests was always pick a default. So it remembered that was important. But it called the test ensures always has a result. And then it gave it one input that has a result. The test works, but that's the wrong test. That doesn't ensure always has a result. That ensures has a result in this one case that works. So this is one of those things where having some knowledge about what's going on, I was able to pick up on it and go, I see what you're doing. I see why. And now I need to tell it that's actually not an effective test case. Here's why. Do you have any other thoughts on how you might do that?
I think that's the key. That's the thing we keep coming back to it all the time. You've got to understand what it's doing so you can make judgments on whether it's doing the right thing in the right way or not. So I'm thinking about the large language models as like a more junior colleague where you can ask them to go off and do things for you, but you have to really be quite clear about what you want, and you have to be able to judge the results and say, no, that's not what I wanted. It was this, that, and the other thing. Is that the approach that works best for you?
I might even argue in my own use case, I could treat them as a more senior colleague because I can find the ways to communicate with it more effectively. So I think it's almost like scaling based on how effectively you can communicate what you're actually after. The other angle I wanted to introduce, though, was about learning. When it gives you something, instead of saying, cool, copy, paste, the first thing you should do is say, what does this do? Tell me why this works. Tell me in situations it doesn't work. Give me 2 other variations of this. You could even ask it, what questions should I be asking you about this if I wanted to learn and understand this more effectively? Use it in a way that enables your learning instead of going copy, paste, and running off.
Get the AI to describe the code to you as if it was a person walking through it.
Yeah, treat it like a colleague. Ask it to quiz you after.
So you can use it like a search tool that brings back answers for you that you can then go into more deeply.
Yeah. You could say to the LLM, I don't actually understand what you just wrote. Could you explain it to me in 2 different ways?
The promise of these LLMs is that it'll increase your productivity and effectiveness. What impact have you seen on your own productivity and the productivity of the team that you manage?
So my team is responsible for making sure that all of the traffic that comes into Office 365 goes to the right server. Part of that is supporting Co-pilot. And so we're always talking about Co-pilot on our team, but I would say the majority of developers haven't found ways to use it naturally in their coding. Outside of code, though, we use Co-pilot in teams and say, summarize this conversation. You're writing a design doc. Give it a first pass to Co-pilot and say, what other questions should I be asking here? So this is the thing where I'm seeing more people doing this stuff, less about the code specifically. I'm not hearing them getting hyped up about the code part.
So colleagues in your team are using Co-pilot and large language models to help produce design documents, but is it impacting their productivity or quality?
I think the answer is yes. I don't know how I would quantify it, though. Measuring developer productivity is a very mystical art. I think anyone who tries to do this always ends up finding themselves with every developer coming at you with pitchforks. But my measure of this would be if people feel more productive. Odds are they probably will be.
What about on your own personal productivity for your coding projects outside of Microsoft?
Yeah, definitely improved. If I have to go spin up a new repository pattern to access data, I name the repository, I paste in a schema in the comments, and I will type public async something, and then it's, oh, you want to create entries? Okay, no problem. Tab, whole thing done. So for this thing, I find it very effective. And being able to brainstorm, going back and forth at the LLM, and instead of it being like, oh man, I don't even know where I'm going to start on that, I'll go to ChatGPT, start having a conversation, and that just gets the ball rolling.
Yeah, I found it's like having a colleague who can go through things with you. They can provide some emotional support that you're on the right track. It can suggest things that you've missed. It can help you flesh things out. For the things that I don't understand that I'm asking it to do, no, it's been a disaster, really. I've spent far too much time for far too little result. But where I do understand what I'm asking it to do, yeah, it's been good and hopefully getting better too. Donna, do you have any other questions you wanted to ask before we go to summaries?
No, but I think the point you just made there was actually getting better. Like, we are super early in this.
So ChatGPT 4.5 has come out. I've been using it. It's a bit better than 4, but apparently it costs them 10 times as much compute or training time and money. And there's lots of research that says LLMs have really reached their limit of what you can do with more training and CPU. But there are other opportunities, particularly around reasoning and understanding concepts. LLMs don't really understand any of the concepts. Those are the areas for big improvements. You can see that they're working on this area.
Yeah, I know the context windows have changed dramatically over time, but being able to use RAG to be able to use semantic search, get relevant pieces of information, feed that in. I'm like, hey, that's novel.
Yeah, so RAG is retrieval augmented generation. You ask it a question and it goes and looks in your documents to find relevant things, and then it uses those to help answer the query. All right. Donna, do you want to kick us off with summaries?
I can kick off with summaries. We talked about your experience getting going with AI-assisted coding. Initially, it didn't work for you, but then after using it for a while, it felt like it was reading your mind. But it took a while to get there. We talked a lot about AI being good for brainstorming, getting feedback, thinking outside of your initial approaches, creating prototypes and early ideas, proving concepts out, but not necessarily producing working software for production use. We talked about how to support inexperienced developers to produce good work using tooling, and not just saying, go do this task, and then they turn up with 1,000 lines of code that is unreviewable. That's poor work practice. We talked about the rhetoric, AI-assisted coding being able to make developers produce 50 times more work, and whether you could actually reduce headcount. And then we wrapped up by talking about using AI to learn by asking it questions, getting it to go through some edge cases. And then we talked a little bit about AI stuff that makes us more productive generally.
I feel like we have to learn how to use the tools. To be part of using them effectively is playing with them and trying different things and learning how to use them. The mental model I have now is, if I'm skilled at something, then I can use it as a colleague to help take some of the burden and to explore things. And that seems to be when it works well. It can teach me things that I hadn't thought of because of its vast information it's got access to, which is good. And it can help me be better for things that I know how to do. I think with the agile stuff that I'm an expert in, it's not so good. It takes the average of what it sees on the internet and presents that as the answer. And since the average of what people have to say about agile is mostly pretty bad, it's not so great at that. I think if you ask it to do something that you don't know how to do, you're just going to get into a massive mess. It can't really do that, although maybe it's getting better. I like the idea that as a product manager or a designer, that we could get an AI tool to turn our ideas into working production ready code. That would mean we could get a lot done without having to pay for a lot of developers. We could do our own projects and side projects and get things out there. So that could lead to a real flourishing of interesting ideas and apps and things being out there. But it doesn't feel like it's there yet. It feels like there's a pretty steep learning curve. And the cases I know where people are doing it, it just seems to go very wrong a lot of the time, or people just never manage to be able to finish anything that works properly. Did you have any suggestions on how we can learn more about this stuff? For people in our position, are there courses, tools, books? How can we make some progress on this, or do we just need to dive in and try it?
My recommendation is dive in, try some things out, play around in ChatGPT, explore the tools that are available, especially for the people that have tried it and said, I didn't have success and wrote it off. Try the tools out again, try different things, try different approaches so that you can get more familiar with what's going on. But we have to go into this being as pragmatic as possible. So instead of hearing something and being like, oh, that must be fact, be curious. Go challenge that idea. Because if you keep listening to different things, you will find that there's a lot of conflicting advice. So go read, go watch, but be pragmatic and try to challenge what you're coming up against, not just say this must be true.
Okay, and you have a newsletter and a YouTube channel where people can go to, don't you?
Yes, I have stuff everywhere. So my social media handle is DevLeader. Started from my blog in 2013, but that's my main YouTube channel as well. It's called DevLeader. I have a second YouTube channel that's called Code Commute, which is where I vlog about software engineering concepts. People can send in questions and I drive in my car and I answer software engineering things. My newsletter is called DevLeader Weekly. But basically, if you search for DevLeader on wherever you want, you'll probably find something of mine there.
And do you provide training with Ryan?
Yes, that's right. Ryan Murphy and I have courses on a platform that's called Dome Train. The courses are career focused for software engineers. So if you wanted to learn about soft skills, promotion pathways, behavioral interviews, we have courses on Dome Train. And then I also have courses on Dome Train specifically for C# because that platform started off for .NET and C# developers. 2 of my courses there are for getting folks with no experience in programming started from nothing. I don't promise that people are going to be experts after 11 hours of courses, but it's a good starting point and you have to practice no matter what. So if you are motivated by having a course to walk you through stuff, it's a great option.
All right. Well, that's been great.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
That was No Nonsense Leadership from Murray Robinson and Donna Spencer. If you'd like to explore better ways to develop software products and services, contact Donna on LinkedIn and Murray at evolve.co. That's Evolve with a 0. Thanks for listening.